All right, we're a couple minutes in, so I think we'll just get started with our meetup, and then if other folks join, I'll just pop them in as we go. Thanks everybody for taking the time on this busy last day of annual meeting. Is everybody enjoying it so far?
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of a weird experience, I feel like, but we were all in it together. And so it felt to me like everybody was trying to do what was available to us, and trying to share in the chats and the Q&A and things like that. Did you guys find the interaction around the content helpful in the sessions you were in?
I actually didn't. I was in a few sessions that people were just filling up the chat box with their LinkedIn URL.
Oh, wow.
And I just found it not appropriate. And it wasn't helpful at all. Anyway, I was like, have these people never virtually networked at all? Like, what is going on? And then I was on a different one that the conversation was around membership and data-driven membership and looking at analytics, and I forget what it was called if anyone else was on it. But then there was like this side conversation with the chat box that like it was a conversation, but I felt like it was completely unrelated to the session. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that was helpful, but you can't really pay attention to that whole separate conversation and then the session. And I think I had chimed in actually a whole nother session that, did anyone do the COVID-19 research session? That one was fabulous. Like, definitely go back and watch that one. But there were certain statistics that were being shared, and I had kind of commented like, oh, these are really scary statistics. And someone else had commented, but then everyone else in the chat just continued their conversation that was completely unrelated. I don't know.
Okay. What about other folks? What was your interaction experience like with the content presenters and the attendees?
I attended mostly sessions on Monday. I had a lot of work yesterday. I wasn't able to attend, but everything I went to, everyone seemed very engaged and, you know, asking questions and connecting, you know, kind of properly. But I think sometimes it could be a bit of a distraction because you don't know if you need to watch the chat for tips and things versus, you know, what's happening with the presenter. So I think that is a challenge sometimes. It's good to kind of recognize that in myself so that we can try to help people, you know, when we're planning for our own events. So.
Right. Yeah, that's how I was treating it, as kind of a learning experience. And I know Eileen and I talked about when we were creating the session, having the conversation on screen, but then also trying to engage with more detail and try to at least prompt questions from folks. I mean, that was one of the motivators, right? Make sure people
no, I mean, I thought that was very well balanced, and you know, it was great that you put links in the chat box because I would go immediately and just kind of download it so I could look at it later.
Except my downloads don't all work, so.
Well, that's okay. I mean, you know, but now you know, so plan for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I you know, I love to go to sessions that actually give you tangible tools to walk out of, because then you feel like you have a jumping off point. So I found that session very helpful.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I saw that in a couple other ones too. It felt like you were there, like they were giving you the handout or something like that.
Yeah, it does. It does make that.
Broke down that wall a little bit. Cool. So did you guys have any specific questions? I mean, this is a content strategy meetup, so I was just curious about the conference itself, but obviously any questions that you guys have, we can help each other out, and Eileen and I are happy to jump in to amplify any of the things we talked about Monday too.
So I'm happy to start. So I'm, you know, been doing meeting planning and logistics and conference strategy for a long time. And the content side was always handled by, you know, content manager or director. And that position has kind of, we've done a reorg, and that position is kind of going away. They're supporting other initiatives within the organization So like for our annual meeting and other regional events that I do, there's no content person. So you can't have a meeting if you don't have content. I'm kind of trying to take that on. But it's two different paths of learning, because one, I need to bring myself up to speed on the specific topics and, you know, areas of interest that people want to hear about. But I also need to kind of educate myself on how to build a content strategy, you know, what that looks like. So that's why I was so happy to find the content forum and attend this meeting. But just curious, but what other professional development opportunities are there in relation to specifically, you know, building and developing a content strategy and plan and all of that?
Right. Does anybody have any suggestions, folks that are just on the line here, of sources that you found helpful?
You know, there was a lot in the, of course, pointed them all out in this forum. A lot of the content sessions were in the ASAE lineup.
Yeah.
But as you probably noticed, and we didn't really address this, but content means different things to different organizations.
Exactly.
And you can be, you know, you can be strictly talking about marketing content, which is the ask.
Yes.
And of course, when we talked about it in our session, the content needs to lead to the ask, but it's not the direct go register for this meeting. It's
right.
Why would you care about this meeting? Why is it important to you do? Why do you think you should do this?
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. But everyone's different and we all have different configurations. So even within the ASAE agenda of all the content lineup, you really had to click on the description and say to yourself, is that really what I'm looking for? There are a couple today that I looked at twice and I thought, I don't think that's what I need, but it's challenging because we're all over the place.
Yeah. No, I definitely, I mean, like if I, you know, I know where to go for meeting planning. I mean, it's PCMA and, you know, it's all convention centers and blah, blah, blah. That's great. But yeah, when I started diving down, it was all about, you know, here's the content to develop your website. I'm like, that's not what I need. I need content to build educational content to build sessions and, you know, all of that. So that's been the big challenge. So
I don't know professional development wise where to look, but we always look into our members. So through the forums and then putting, you know, some easy questions out on the website for them to pull, and then also in emails sometimes we'll link to a Cognito form or to, you know, another polling service, and then they're driving what you want. Now that works if you have really good participation. If not, you kind of have to throw some stuff up on the wall and see what sticks. But I think it's really beautiful when your content that you're going to use in your education sessions can drive your marketing.
Right.
And then you're putting out plugs and you're kind of seeing, okay, people are reacting to this, people aren't reacting to this. And then your newsletters and your feedback. So I'm not sure where to go for professional development on it. But I know that you know, kind of creating a strategy and using those pieces throughout your marketing, it'll help gauge interest as you're building your sessions.
Okay.
So that's just a few recommendations.
That's helpful.
Of course.
Hi, Abby. I'll echo that because I was about to chime in that way. With which organization are you with?
With the Healthcare Business Women's Association.
Okay.
So they're not practitioners; they're really women on the business side of healthcare. So it's a, you know, it's a bit of a niche. So, group.
So to piggyback on Abby, I was going to say I participated in a Rasa.io demo last week actually, and it was really interesting to think about the click-throughs in those emails and the data that they're collecting and how that should be used to drive content. So even if you don't have something as, you know, sophisticated as, you know, Rasa.io and smart newsletters and AI, there's other things that you can do. Like you can monitor, like, you know, if you have Google Analytics for any of your websites, monitoring the page views and whatnot. So, I mean, what Abby was saying is you definitely want members, like, it's not like you sit in a room and you're like, oh, I think, you know, a section on da-da-da would be, like, you really have to monitor what your members are doing before you develop content.
That's helpful.
Yeah, and I think just to add on to what Tirsa said about Google Analytics, one thing I see with associations, even though they have Google Analytics, they don't have their search turned on.
Oh.
So they aren't tracking like the search terms that are being used on their site.
Okay.
Or monitoring the search terms that are bringing people to their site. So that gives some insight too on just hot topics that people are looking for, how to information, those kinds of questions. That
fabulous. Yeah, I know our marketing people are all over the Google Analytics, and I'm just like, I don't know anything about it. So this is a great place for me to start.
So Jennifer, you might ask them to help identify that content that leads to the meeting so that you can start tracking that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we've got, you know, we've got some, I mean, I know the information is there. It's just finding the starting point and that thread for me personally to kind of pull it down. And I mean, I won't be doing this in a vacuum, obviously. I'm going to have help and everything. So, but I'm just trying to.
Another PD, a professional development resource to look at. Do you know the name Christina Halverson? She wrote the book Content Strategy for the Web. Okay. Her company every year does a confab conference. So it's all about content strategy. But just this year, they're launching, I think it's in September or October, they call it the Button Conference. Don't ask me why. They branded it that way. But it's about content for product development. So that might give you some really good insights about content strategy that way. It'll be all virtual, obviously, so it should be accessible.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Sure.
I think another thing that is really underused is, you know, the question at the end of any session or anything that you do that says, what question hasn't been answered in this session yet today? Because, and when you form it that way, or, you know, make it easy, make it an easy ask so that people feel like almost obligated to write what their question is. And then I think that helps gauge your next session, right? So if you see trends there, you kind of build that off of what you're already doing. When you're not able to do that, or you don't do that, I think it's just a missed opportunity. Like, you have people there in your session now, so use that to.
Super.
All great ideas.
Very good. Thank you.
Of course.
Has anybody attended a really terrific session, whether content related or not, in the last couple of days that you just want to share?
I was actually on vacation for the first 2 days, so that's why I'm just kind of catching up on everything.
Yeah. Well, there are a couple this afternoon too, but.
Yeah. I am finding it hard though to find, like someone said, you have to click in to see the descriptions. I'm finding it really hard to figure out what, and I'm like I'm the web manager for my association. So I feel like I should be seeing things that are would be pretty easy to find things interesting to me, but I'm not. I'm just kind of like, what? I don't know what this is. This is like revenue.
Yeah. I'm going to attend the customer journey one this afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay.
That Joanna Pineda is doing. I think that one will be good. And then I can't remember the other one. I tweeted that I was going. It has content in the title, and the folks from
Content Innovation at 3:30.
What was it?
Content. I just wrote down in my little notes, Content Innovation. That's at 3:30.
Yes. Yeah, that's the other one. And I thought the one that Jaya and Bill did yesterday on small staff communication was really a good one too. Even if you aren't a smaller staff organization, I felt like the frameworks that they shared were useful about how people can collaborate around content and
communication. Yeah, I had a conflict during that time, so I'll go back and look. So we could just go use the It looks like we can use the tool and get into any of them that we want to watch,
Yeah,
right?
it did.
Yeah. Yeah, through the end of the month. So
That's great.
that's a good
Okay, I was
feature.
wondering how long we would have to do that. I will
Yeah.
tell you the thing about ASAE's in terms of content, they're the emails they send out saying for every day saying that the sessions are open. I can't read it on my phone.
Oh.
Tiny little print, and it's all on this big Excel sheet. And I think, you know, how can you be telling me how to do it? You can't get the
Yeah,
emails right.
that's really, I'll have
Because
to go back and try that. I hadn't seen that
seeing
yet.
on your desktop is fine, but I for somehow way back when I enrolled in ASAE with my personal Hotmail. I know I have a Hotmail. I have a lot of other emails, but I do have a Hotmail. So anyway, I get most of their emails on my Hotmail account, and I look on my but I have like an iPhone 10, and I look and I'm like, what? I can't understand.
So funny.
Yeah, that's definitely should be a lesson learned.
Yeah.
Have you told them?
I've told them about their daily email they send out, which I think is Rasa.io, that I can't read on my iPhone. I can't read it unless I expand it.
Yeah, the old finger.
There's a lot of people out there that I don't think realize some of the iPhones mingle their emails.
And I think some of that is like, depending on where they are in their strategy and how much budget they have, like that's the best they can do, right?
Right.
It's interesting. I wonder if they're sending those emails about each day to their members that didn't register for conference. Not with the link to join, right? But I think that would be an interesting thing to see, because you read those sessions and yeah, you need to dive deeper into it, but I think it's great marketing, even if not, this is kind of calculated, but might even go over as an accident, like, oops, sorry, didn't mean to send that to you, you know? But I just wonder, because I think it's a great marketing tool to actually see what the sessions are, not just the overall, hey, join us for ASAE, go to the website and look what you're missing. It's like right there.
Right.
I think I have a feeling it was planned, that email was probably planned like last week. And someone was like, how do we get this out so we can get all the sessions on a page?
Yep.
And someone's like, let's stick a table in there. And they're like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I did think that was, I was like, it just seemed a little old school.
yeah, right. And it's like, we found this email we did in 2012. Let's try and do it.
Tables don't translate across different platforms and different devices, do they?
Yeah, danger zone.
Well, my content strategy question is that we are working on we're in the midst of a redesign. I know we're not supposed to say that anymore, but we are. And I'm like stuck because I have to do the content inventory and that side of it. And I just have so many things that I started, because you know, I'm one of those people that I guess got stuck not doing a lot of the content strategy during the years that I had inherited an old system. And so now it's just like this behemoth, and I have to like go into all the books that I have and go back and figure out how to do this again. And I'm just like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
Yeah.
Also, the current site and social media.
I mean, inventories and audits, I think they're fun because I feel like it's a way to just get all the crap out. But it's very dependent, like you said, on the strategy up front, because how do you make any decisions about anything if you don't have any guidelines set? So I don't know. Do you have a process set up that people have kind of prioritized what should stay or what gaps there are?
That's what I'm getting ready to do right now. So we're kind of, you know, we have a company who's handling the redesign itself, and they did a lot of the audit part of it, but not you know how they did like the technical audit, and they've done a lot of the journey mapping and the stakeholder interviews, but like the back end of it, it's kind of like, I'm slow and they're fast. So,
Or I mean, I'll put it more on a positive spin for
Okay.
well, not positive, but
Good.
it sounds like you're going to have to forklift stuff into something that's already built.
Well, it's not been built yet, so I still have, I still, well, I will be able to make it what I want it to be.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I will still have a lot of input. I'll have most input. But it's because we're small and I'm like the group of one. So, you know, trying to make it all happen at the right time. Like, I'm sure that I'm doing this wrong, but it's just this is the way it's happening. So.
Well, I'm happy to send you a framework that I've given other clients to use, like the typical spreadsheet. We run
Okay.
Screaming Frog to, pull all the things in.
Right.
And then I usually set up a spreadsheet that has criteria on it, right? Are you going to keep it? Are you going to edit it? Or are you going to completely eliminate it?
Okay.
Suggested guidelines about, how old is old,
Right.
right? What's needed? Do you need 8 years of press releases or whatever those kinds of things are? Those are the easy things that you just kind of samurai slice out. But then the other pieces that are really important is who's it for, right? There's audience drop downs. I also suggest like the tagging be assigned in the spreadsheet too. So you make those decisions proactively before anything's built, like you said.
Right.
So put any taxonomy ideas that you have in there as a drop down so you can make those assignments. So that's easy to move in when it's ready. And then timelines, like who's responsible for it and when does it have to be ready, whatever that ready determination was. So people know it's not 2 weeks before go live. It's why aren't we working on this now? I mean, I've even had clients rewrite content on the current site to prep it before it's even migrated.
That's kind of what I'm thinking, that I'm going to have them rewrite all of so we're kind of going with this idea of the skim and dive approach, because most of our members don't want to read a lot before they have to log. We have a lot of members only content, so they don't want to read a lot before they, they don't want to have to log in and then go, and they want something just short and fast. So I'm having everyone rewrite like a small paragraph, because I feel like what happens is they send it to me and they assume that I'm going to just rewrite this whole paragraph for them, which I do, but that's why I'm stuck here now, because I'm like, I don't have time to do all that. So even if they start it and then they tell me like, it will fit under these two pieces, these two areas, and then we are working on our taxonomy right now, so I can have them choose that part.
Yeah, that's a great beginning towards structured content too, because I was going to say you can also have them work on retitling stuff so they improve your SEO. But then if you do that short summary, that's awesome, because then in the new system that can be used for search engine result pages and things like that, right?
It's true. I didn't even see. I knew I was getting stuck in this muddle of.
No, I'm going in the weeds with it, but your instincts are
there's
totally
so much
right.
information out there that you just kind of get stuck in. It's like I just like circle around. Like I should be doing something. I can't do this. This is too much work. I need to figure out how to do what I need to do first, and then move forward. So anyway, that's good.
Yeah.
Do you have an intake form or an ability to control that on your website that has the boxes where, okay, choose from these tags and taxonomy, do this short?
I saw that in the forum that someone had posted a kind of review form, and I think I could probably create that if it's not built in, if it's not something we can build into the CMS. I think I can create a form that I require people to fill out before. But it's not like, we don't have this whole, a lot of times things are small pieces of content. You think they're going to be this small little thing to do, and then it ends up being this like, huge project. And you get it because someone forwarded it to like 4 different people and then forwarded it to you, and you're like, oh. So that's the kind of thing I think this form will help, kind of.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, you can even put a little example of how you want your short paragraph, so that like right there on the form, if you can, like in italics
Yeah.
or gray. And so that way it seems like maybe that's something that's taking up a lot of your time, and that way you're putting it back on them to do it, and then hopefully you can just edit it. But they have an example of what you want there. They're not just taking their intro paragraph and putting it at the top.
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
Great. Hi, Susie, welcome.
Hi, thanks. Nice to see everybody.
Yeah, we were just talking with Suzanne is in the middle of preparing for a content inventory and audit. So we were giving her some ideas on how she might survive that. So what question brings you to the meetup today? Anything pending or?
Well, yeah, and I didn't know whether or not this would be the right forum, but I was hoping because content, education, those were buzzwords for me. So I thought I would check in with you guys to see if you have some advice for those of us who are still doing it the old way, where we are planning content for our meetings and events in the old-fashioned way, where you've got you know, face-to-face meetings, and now everything's going virtual. And I didn't know whether or not there were some new ways to plan the content and new strategies and new ideas for making it all more virtual.
Great question. Jen, do you want to jump in with some of the stuff that we talked about early on?
Sure. So I think, you know, some of the notes I took, I'm very new to content. I was just explaining to everyone. So just asking for some general advice on kind of how to start and tackle this beast. So, you know, Abby really suggested, you know, talking to members and having them that will kind of drive the content, you know, speaking with them, or perhaps an email form to get ideas on what the hot topics are for them. Looking at your community sites. I know we have a Higher Logic community site on our website. So kind of popping into those and pulling out, you know, the topics that people are discussing or have questions about to help build that strategy. The other thing that I was thinking about, just my the way our organization is set up, because I have a lot of chapters and they'll do chapter events, which are actually listed on our website. So I'm going to go and just start searching, you know, see if I can pull out which ones were the, you know, had the highest registrations. And that's going to give me, I think, a wealth of information on what people are really, you know, what's piquing everyone's interest right now. So that was just one thing that I thought of. And then looking at Google Analytics from your marketing team. Dina has suggested making sure they have the search turned on in the Google Analytics. Keep referring to it like the Facebook. Makes me feel old. But really just kind of seeing what word searches pulled people to your website, but also when they get on your website, what are they searching for? And thinking, pulling those terms through and trying to build content around that. So those were some of the things that I jotted down. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in.
I think besides the content ideas, then it becomes about format, right? And I know that the ASAE professional development listserv on Collaborate, they're having a lot of back and forth. I don't know if it was based on a session or just somebody's question originally, but I know they're having a lot of back and forth about session structure. I think the advice I've seen bubble up so far, and that I've seen with some of my clients that jumped in and did the virtual meetings like right off the bat, you know, in like April and May, their feedback were things like, we can't treat them all the same. Like a panel is not a panel like it used to be, right? It's the level of interactivity needs to be baked in. And I know even with Eileen and I, when we were doing our planning for our session, it was supposed to be a deep dive where we're going to have people at their tables unpacking and doing the content strategy statement, for example, and taking the tactics worksheet and kind of applying that information from the research study to their own organization so they could just get used to using the tools. That was all kind of ripped away from us when we had to, fit this format that everybody's doing in kind of a 45-minute session. So it became, here's the handout, go read this and figure out how to use it, kind of thing. So I think if now that we have the time to plan, if you could have breakout rooms, right, where people go off and Zoom or whatever your platform is. And I actually did this with a client on a workshop. I sent them off in their small groups and they went off and did their little worksheet completion. And then we all came back and talked about it. So just that's one off the cuff idea of just rethinking within the framework of the tool that you go search for, how many different session types can you create?
Right. I'm assuming that this group is, you all are together not just for planning, how to plan content for meetings and webinars, but also just content, period. Just plain old content that drives members to your site, which that's a, much broader subject, but also requires an enormous level of organization and thought, right, behind that strategy. So sorry if I sort of hijacked this into being just all about planning an annual meeting session content.
Oh, no, not at all. That's what the meetup was for, just for whatever burning questions had come up. So don't apologize.
I think it's interesting, something, Dina, that you talked about is how we're kind of transitioning, right? There were people and we kind of been just surviving in this online conference, like get it switched over, do it as quickly as possible and do the best you can. One of my clients provides professional development for teachers in a specific field in Texas, and we helped them secure 70+ professional development sessions. And so that was a wide array of topics that then now is on demand for them for a given period of time. Right now it's the end of the year, it may be extended through this school year, but that their membership is kind of associated with the school year, and so that's a natural fit. I think in terms of that they can refer to it whenever. But what we did was in doing that, there was so much information, and it can kind of be information overload, but we were able to appeal to every kind of member that we had. Had at least 7 sessions on general ed and things that were coming down from the education agency, and then some more specific things. So I think that when you're looking at content, not only is it about, okay, what do they need, but it's about how can we sprinkle in all these different things. And one thing that we leaned into is we knew it wouldn't be like it was in person, and we couldn't make it that way. So the strength of on demand and the ability to view it at any time and for a long time after that, we really had to play into, and we had huge success, record attendance with that group. So that's another way to look at it.
Yeah, we're doing that with our annual meeting, just because we have a high global membership, which normally doesn't come to the annual meeting because it's always held domestically. So we have an opportunity here to reach a wider audience. So we're thinking about what things we can do that's on demand, so you could view it at any time that's convenient to you, wherever, whatever time zone you're in. But also the schedule is so quite different because there are certain things that we're having, early in the morning or later in the afternoon or right at the midday for the East Coast time, so that it kind of captures everybody around. And everything that we're doing is definitely smaller, or shorter, I should say. So because people just can't sit there for hours on end. So, we're doing a lot of bite-sized programming, and then any of our breakout sessions, which would typically be 75 to 90 minutes, are going down to like 35. And then you have, the presenter live for Q&A. So, and just trying to encourage the speakers to be as interactive as possible, you know, asking questions, doing polling. I know on Zoom, they have like a whiteboard feature that people could type their answers in, because it just keeps them engaged, and you need them to be paying attention. I mean, that's the goal.
I love all those ideas. I mean, one of the disappointing things for me as a presenter was that our chat went away from our session. So our chat is not sustained in the on-demand playback, and so much was happening in there. And now I need to cycle back and put all the links that we put in the chat as kind of a handout on the session now, because otherwise everybody's going to be like, how do I get that worksheet? I mean, and they didn't tell us that going in, right? Or we could have put the URLs on the slide.
They probably didn't know, Dina. I learned that we did a short event. It was like 2 hours, but it was, you know, there were breakouts and everything. And I realized that people were like, "Ooh, I want a copy of the chat." So I had staff like going in and copying and pasting it into a Word doc to send out later to people. But I mean, that's just one of those things that's what people want. That's where, you know, you get some really good tidbits there. So you don't want to lose it.
Are you talking about the Intrado platform that was for this meeting? Because I did attend your session, Dina, which was very helpful, but I was not aware that you could not capture the chat.
Yeah.
I know you can in a Zoom platform.
One of the attendees copied it, like you said, Jennifer, and sent it to us.
Yeah.
So that's a good idea. Maybe I'll just post that up as one of the handouts
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. And I mean, you can use it for marketing, because you could say, did you miss this session? You know, you could go view it on demand, but here's
what we were talking about.
Yeah, here's the chat. I mean, that's valuable.
That's a good idea.
So what platforms does everyone use for your virtual things? You know, is it mostly Zoom then that everyone's using? I mean, I know this virtual meeting is using Intrado, but what other platforms have people been familiar with?
Well, it just kind of depends. I just went through a big RFP and we saw several platforms. A lot of them are still, you know, laying on top of Zoom. So like we're going to use EventPower. They actually do our registration, and they were a part of the ASAE demo. And I just really liked kind of that platform that they're laying on top of Zoom. It's going to be very interactive, and it suits our needs. I mean, you can go crazy with all the bells and whistles. There's just so much out there. So you really have to find one that you're comfortable with using, and, you know, kind of fits the experience that you want for your members. Because the event that we did in earlier this spring, it was very much the same thing. We were supposed to have an event, it got canceled, so we pivoted and we went to this online platform. And the day came, we had 6,500 people registered, and the system failed, and we had to cancel. And it was probably the worst. I mean, I still have nightmares about it.
Yeah.
So we rescheduled and it was almost a month later before we got it all back up and running. I mean, luckily people stuck with us and our sponsors stuck with us, but it was absolutely the worst thing that could ever happen.
Yeah.
But we survived. But when we went to, you know, but I learned a lot. I mean, I learned a ton. You know, because at that point I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know what questions to ask. And now I'm like, what about this? What about that? You know, and really leveraging our IT team and a couple other teams. It was truly the worst experience of my life, professionally. So.
Right.
So Jennifer, you had mentioned earlier that you guys use HireLogic for your community, you know, connections.
Right.
Is that where you store all of the on-demand content that you're?
That's where we are storing, like from the event that we redid, all of that content is now uploaded. I sent all of the videos to an editor and just had them kind of bookend with, like, you know, welcome to and thank you for attending slides. And then we posted it all on HireLogic, and that's how people will access it.
That is great. That is amazing.
But for EventPower, our contract includes the content will be up and on demand for 6 months, and then if included in the contract, and then after that, you know, it can we can, you know, extend it if we want to. But
is there a way, Jennifer, in I don't know if you have the Higher Logic community or you use the website tool too, but is there a way to like post related content to those sessions so you can point them to other things?
Is. Yeah, I'm sure there probably is. So I will jot that down.
Because then you can repurpose some of your
exactly
existing content too.
My clients are fortunate on the platform side. The program developer that wrote their registration system is really hands-on, and it's a small company, a small team, but they basically wrote what they wanted. And so there were not a ton of interactive opportunities on this site, but we did use a combination of Zoom and then this platform that was built to be very cost effective, and then go back and forth. And so you would go to a session, and then if it was a Zoom link, there was a button that said join webinar, and it would drop you into the Zoom. And if it was more of a not a meeting or a webinar, really just a broadcast basically of the general session pieces, then it was just played over this platform. And so that was an interesting thing. My role was very different, as I'm usually a meeting planner handling logistics on site, to try to get and figure out what tool or what format was going to be the best and kind of lead that discussion between the client and then the platform provider, kind of as an intermediary. So there's a lot that can be done with Zoom, and you can do it pretty cost effectively. My concern with the platforms is the support. Jennifer, I'm wondering, like, who were you contacting when that meeting went down, and did you have a contact? That's what scares me most of all with those off-the-shelf platforms. I'd love to hear more about that experience.
Oh my God, it was you know, it was a smaller operation. And we had a provider who had agreed to do it. We had a contract, and then they called me like a week later and said they were just overwhelmed and couldn't do it. So the first, that happened. Then we found someone else who could do it on the day that we had already been, marketing. So that was, and then we had the failure. And it was a registration data issue. It just basically, their system thought that they were being hacked and it shut down.
Wow.
So, but that was the scary thing, as an event planner, especially when you're on site, if there's a problem, you can usually fix it, who to go to. But when in the virtual world, once it starts, it's out of your hands. There's just,
right.
I'm assuming we're all kind of control freaks. So, that was very, very, very challenging. And I had one person I could call, but she was busy trying to figure out what was happening. So there was a lot of lag time in getting answers. Meanwhile, everyone's, on Twitter and texting and calling the customer service, and we can't get in, what's happening? And we're all like, and then all the staff are calling me.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's fine. We're recovered, but it will be hard on day one of the annual conference. I'm going to need
Jennifer,
some liquid courage.
What's the association you work for?
I work for the Healthcare Business Women's Association. Yeah, HBA. So.
And how many members do you have?
We have about 10,000 members.
Okay, so you're large. To me, that's large. We have about 3,500, 3,000, 3,500.
Yeah.
So pretty small. Yeah, we don't have an IT department.
We have one person. That's our IT.
Okay.
I mean, we're a small staff. There's 26 of us. We're all virtual. We've always been virtual. So when all this hit, we were kind of like, oh, we know how to do this. We're already doing it. But there's still a lot of challenges. So
yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to take up everyone's time talking about my mishap. So.
I think that's why we're here, isn't it?
You're the first people I've told this story to, outside of my family and stuff, because I think I was still such a shock. I'm like, I can't share this. It's so upsetting and embarrassing, but lessons learned. We learned a lot of lessons.
Absolutely.
Could happen to any of us. I mean, all of us are in this uncharted territory that it's a hope and a prayer that everything goes smoothly, especially with small staff. I wonder.
Sorry, go ahead.
What are your ideas for empowering other people on your team to help with content creation? How do you, I know, Dina, that you talked about that. And if that's not an important question, Susie, if you have something else,
No, please, that's
I'm
great.
curious about that, because your IT tech department, while they're coming across something, they may be seeing a trend. So how do you empower them to help your members, even if it's content generation about how to use your website better, or how to access their member benefits better? Does anybody have ideas about that?
Well, I think one of the things that we saw in the research study that was most successful for people that kind of had moved into the moving toward the advanced stage of adopting the content strategy throughout the organization was just the collaboration and cooperation piece. So I think as long as IT is at the table from the beginning, when you're having these larger content strategy discussions and they get it, then I think that is a way to empower them, right? Because they understand what the ultimate goals are for the content. It's not about the tool. The tool has to deliver on the promise of the content strategy. So if they're plugged into that from the beginning, then they can completely be your advocate and partner through it. The breakdown that I unfortunately see when I go into places is that everybody's on parallel paths, right? IT's out shopping for the thing, and the content folks are kind of creating the content that fit the thing. There has to be some kind of happy medium that both teams understand. And the hook for that, the carrot that you're holding out there, is that this is for the member, right? It's not about us. We're the people that are serving the member. So if we can collaborate as staff partners to get to that end goal of delivering the right stuff that the members need when they need it, that's the carrot that you kind of have to use to convince people. And I say it in a phrase that sounds, oh, super easy, but I worked for associations for 15 years before I started consulting. So I know the politics, I know the minefields and everything, and I know it's not easy, but you have to have that aspiration, right, as your goal when you're going into content strategy like this. So that's the groundwork I suggest. And then tactically, you talked about how to get more people on board with it. I mentioned that ASIS International webinar that we did. I highly recommend, if you can't watch the recap of the video, at least look at the tools they're using, because they're using them for their volunteers, but they would apply to, Abby, like you were saying. There's forms in there that you can just capture the structure of how you want your content to be created, which later makes it easier to publish or repurpose, because you're collecting it in a way that can be reused easily, no matter what tool you're using. So I think there's some good examples in there. And I would encourage you too to, post these questions in the forum, because there's 300 and some other folks in there that would have some experience that would be able to share their perspectives too.
And what forum is that you're talking about?
Oh, that's the content forum. If you go to,
that's the one that I think I just joined that.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yesterday.
Post a question on there. You can just do a quick post, or if you want to share a more long form article, you can, muse away and put your information out there. People are really eager to help with ideas.
All right, so I have a really, it feels like a really naive question, but I do want to ask it. So our society is real small, and we have been known to be a society that is an annual meeting with a society attached to it. Do you know what I mean? Instead of a 365-day-a-year society, and we're international. And I know that the goal for our society, one of the strategic goals, is to really branch out and become a more global 365-day-a-year society that offers content to our members all year long. But, obviously the majority of our content in the past has been generated at the annual meeting. So my first question would be, how do you take a small society like this and put together a content strategy, and who are the players that should be involved in that content strategy to start looking at ways to change how we do things so that we do become a 365-day-a-year content generating society.
I wish Eileen Denny was still on the call, but I'll share something that she shared, I think in the session, but I know she told me, so I'll tell you. I think one of the ways that you can be more of a constant presence of value is using social media channels, right? So they have a campaign. She works for the American Association of PAs. So if you go on Instagram and just look for that, I can even send you the hashtag, but they have a hashtag that they're posting. So the PAs are posting things about themselves, about their practice and things like that. So they're really engaging the members in posting videos and information about their day-to-day work.
There's somebody then from the association that is leading this social media strategy to get the members to engage in doing these postings on Instagram.
Exactly. But the members are buying into it and contributing this video content on Instagram just to raise the visibility of the practice itself, right? So that's one way I would say. The other way is in thinking about, and this is a little bit bigger ask, but I'm applying an idea from a larger scientific society I work with. So two options here. When you create your conference sessions, can you also obligate some of your speakers to write a blog post or something about their session? If not, can you get them to record like a 1-minute stand-up about the top 3 things that would be learned in their session? And then attach that to the handouts or the abstract or whatever you collect about, however you do your conference content creation. If you can't do those things,
what's a 1-minute?
I'm sorry?
What's a 1-minute stand-up?
Just somebody on a video that they're recording themselves, or you're having a staff member record them. If we were in real life, they would do it.
Okay.
But I'm saying I would do it as a speaker. I'll just do a 1-minute. Here's 3 things that I shared Monday that helps you advance your content strategy. Blah, blah, blah. And then the thing about the blog posts, because I said it is a big ask if you're asking the volunteers to do a whole session and write a blog post, is there a staff person that can cover that session and just write a short blog post about it? The reference I'm making is the American Society for Microbiology, and what they did to amplify the content that's published in their journals is they had a staff person assigned, like a reporter, to just write a short blog post about 3 journal articles in each journal each month. They got, I think, they increased their page views on their website by up to 2 million. Now, they're a huge society. They have 25,000 members or something like that. But contextually, you know, you're using something that's already there, a conference session or a journal article or whatever, but you're making a smaller snack content item from that people can still learn from and use and share.
Those are great ideas. In fact, I could envision, we already had employed junior faculty volunteers to attend our meetings and attend various sessions, write about them, and post them in our newsletter. And why not have them do that with our webinars and other sessions that may be done online?
Right.
That is a great idea. We don't have a marketing communications person right now, so I think this is, you know, one of the things that seems to be, I seem to get this idea that this is a way to market and communicate to and engage our members. So it's sorely lacking in our society right now, but these are great ideas that we can implement. Social media, blog posts, stand-up videos, volunteers to cover, like you said, cover these sessions.
Right, and you're treating it like an editorial team, right? However you staff it, but the logic is too that members are getting content how they want it. I mean, not everybody's going to watch the whole webinar, not everybody's going to watch the whole session, but they might get the tidbit of info when they're doing a search on their site to answer a question that they had when they're out just trying to do their job. So, yeah.
Great ideas. Okay, I'm going to have to jump off, but
yeah, I
thank you,
appreciate you guys
Dana.
taking the time. This was a great way to see everybody. So
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks for
Okay.
your time.